Now, for many gamers, the purest and most enjoyable childhood memories came from sitting in front of a screen with a controller in hand. I mean, sure, going out with friends, playing in parks and family holidays were awesome, but booting up a console and delving deep into your favorite games, well, that was unbeatable. But then again, we were kids, and what necessarily constituted as a good time back then is quite embarrassing and cringy to look back at now. So let's take a look at the video games that represent this best. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 worst video games ever made that we loved as kids. Number 10. South Park Rally. If you were a kid who loved funny cartoons and rude words, then South Park was a home away from home. It even came with bonus points for being something your parents wouldn't want you to watch for those kids with a rebellious side. Due to its popularity, video game tie-ins have come in abundance, but before the days of the Stick of Truth and Fractured But Whole, there was South Park Rally, a licensed kart game set in the quiet mountain town. Grabbing a couple of friends and enjoying this ridiculous ride was a blast, as controlling all your favorite characters was ridiculously fun, and the fast gameplay felt great. But looking at the game now, well, it's a very different experience. As far as branded kart racers go, it's clearly on the cheaper side. The visuals are ugly, the vehicle handling is sloppy, and the general polish is, well, non-existent. It was fun in the 2000s, but could barely pass as a cheap indie game nowadays. Of course, the 1998 South Park game also deserves a mention, but even most kids knew that that one was pretty rubbish at the time, especially when compared to this bonkers racer. Number 9. Enter the Matrix. Getting your hands on a game like this back in the day made you feel like the coolest kid at the disco. It was full of guns, actions, and mature themes, which every gamer kid wanted to experience. It was also released around the same time as The Matrix Reloaded hit screens, meaning that there was plenty of buzz around the series. While the narrative of the game might have gone over many young players' head, that didn't matter, as the fighting and the bullet time mechanics gave you all the corny sci-fi action you wanted. However, much like the Matrix sequels themselves, this game was all style and no substance. This was a title that, while it did have a lot of passion, was clearly rushed to market to appear alongside the film, and it shows as the gameplay has aged horribly. The movement of the characters is jagged and goofy looking, the camera is unruly and gets stuck way too often, and the aiming is rudimentary, and overall that's just scratching the surface of all of the technical issues. Plus, while the story didn't matter to us as kids, it's easy to see now how noticeably watery, convoluted, and pretentious it all is, although it does score points for accuracy, seeing as the Matrix movies are also guilty of that. Number 8. SHREK Super Party. When this game came out in 2002, it seemed too good to be true. A party game starring your favorite ogre and his friends? I mean, where can we sign up? However, this dream is much more of a nightmare nowadays. The simple approach of this title was to take the iconic DreamWorks movie and haphazardly slap it onto a party game format with a quick turnaround. It came out a year following the first SHREK movie, so it was clearly made to capitalize on the film's unexpected success. A cheap movie tie-in? I mean, those are always great, right? Right? This game is about as aesthetically pleasing as a handful of slugs being thrown at your face. The enlarged heads, the busy screen, and the vomit green color palette make it unpleasant from the ground up. I mean, sure, the SHREK movie itself leaned into the ugliness, but it was a deliberate style choice. Here, though, it's just a bombardment of the senses. But of course, there was no point telling a kid that this game wasn't a good time, as it featured the characters that they loved and let them play along with friends and family. Let's just hope that all the kids who played this game eventually got their hands on Mario Party, because that stands up to the test of time. Number 7. Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, Gooby-Dooby-Babby-Babby-Doo, where are you? Well, apparently starring in an awful video game, that's where he is. This beloved talking dog and his peers at Mystery Inc. are some of the most iconic characters ever made. So, as has been made clear on this list already, a cash grab video game was all but inevitable. Cyber Chase, based on the direct-to-video film of the same name, puts you in control of Scoobit and Shaggy as they try to defeat the Phantom Virus. Now, if you loved this character, then you loved this game. Sadly, though, it hasn't aged just poorly. Well, it was never that good at all, if we're being honest. This Scooby-Doo gaming experience is plagued with ugly graphics, bad level design, clunky controls, and plenty of other mistakes, like the painfully repetitive boss fights. The lackluster game doesn't even come close to capturing the Scooby-Doo experience and is just a poorly made Crash Bandicoot ripoff. Now, there have been better Scooby-Doo games like Night of 100 Frights or Mystery Mayhem that, while aged, are somewhat decent to replay. However, don't take the risk of re-exploring this one unless you want a ruined childhood. Number 6. The Simpsons Road Rage. Now, there was a time where you couldn't step into a gaming store without seeing The Simpsons plastered on case after case. The peak of The Simpsons video game heyday was undoubtedly their GTA clone, The Simpsons Hit and Run. Sadly, it's safe to say that they didn't treat Crazy Taxi with the same respect. Road Rage was a clone of the iconic Sega franchise set in the town of Springfield. You drive around, pick up passengers, get them to their destinations within a time limit, and smash as much stuff as you wanted along the way. Now, any kid who loved driving, breaking things, and The Simpsons, well, they were in heaven. But in reality, Road Rage, well, it was plagued with issues. Do the cars handle well? Absolutely not. Did the game look good? Hell no. Was there anything in it better than the original? No. Just no. The game's most damning feature, however, was its terrible collision detection, the failure of which ruined the game's entire premise. I mean, why even bother driving around smashing things if you're just going to get clipped by an invisible object anyway? Now, this game is better than The Simpsons Wrestling or The Simpsons Skateboarding, but that's like saying that you prefer having a cold over the full-blown flu. You'd be better off with neither. Number 5. Digimon World. If you were lucky enough to have grown up as a Pokemon fan, then you're pretty safe from having your childhood classics ruined. But whether it was your grandma misunderstanding and getting you the wrong one, or a desire to go for the underdog, kids who grew up with Digimon, well, they weren't quite so lucky. The Digimon franchise has many ups and downs, and that is very clear in the games as well. There are plenty of poor titles in its lineup, and Digimon World, the first video game in the franchise, is unfortunately one of them. This PlayStation title puts you in the shoes of a nameless protagonist and lets you travel around the digital world evolving your Digimon. However, it had many flaws that its more popular Pocket Monster counterpart just didn't. Examples of this include an intense difficulty spike in the story, a lack of control during the battles, in which your Digimon fights with little input, and for some reason, the ability to manage your Digimon's pooping habits. Why is this in here? Then there's the sound design. Oh, bloody hell, the sound design. Listening to the characters walking about is sometimes worse than nails on a chalkboard. Still, die-hard Digimon fans can attest to the fun this game provided them, despite its shortcomings. Number 4. BIONICLE the Game. The LEGO games are something that almost every gamer has had a past with, whether it be the original Star Wars titles, the Marvel ones, or hell, even the LEGO movie video games. It's safe to say that the company has a stranglehold on pretty much everyone's childhood. But there were plenty of LEGO games on the market before they began licensing properties, and one of them was BIONICLE. This title was a 3D platformer that let you take control of the elemental-based characters from the LEGO toy collection. Each one had different levels, skills, and abilities based on their powers and personalities. It was easy to love this game as a kid, especially if you already played with Bionicles, but LEGO had clearly not hit its stride with video game making just yet, as this was messy. One of the biggest problems was the atrocious camera controls that left you unable to see what the hell was going on, and often felt like they had a mind of their own. In addition to this, the level design was rudimentary at best, and if that wasn't bad enough, the runtime was so short that this game felt like a demo, not a full release. Overall, it was not a good look from LEGO. Number 3. SPYRO Enter the Dragonfly. If you ever owned a PlayStation in your life, then chances are that you've played Spyro. The purple dragon is a synonymous mascot for the Sony company, and most of his games are an absolute blast. Although take note of the word most here, because the franchise definitely had its bad eggs, and this is one of them. Enter the Dragonfly was the 4th game in the series, and it brought down the good name of Spyro. Its first problem was that it was another run-of-the-mill platformer with very little innovation from the previous installment, and this lack of originality irked many players. Additionally, it came with a smorgasbord of technical problems, including bugs, glitches, and poor controls that made playing it frustrating. In some ways, you could say it was ahead of its time, considering the modern trend of major companies releasing broken games, except there was no actual DLC or patches to fix this one. Despite all of that, though, there were still plenty of kids who loved playing this game. Yeah, it sucked, but it was a brand new Spyro game, and for a lot of youngsters, that was just enough. Number 2. Drake of the 99 Dragons. Since dragons are on the mind, why not move to a very different kind of dragon-based title? And this one is far less cutesy, but just as broken and disappointing, and yet still managed to bring in the crowd. Drake of the 99 Dragons was a third-person shooter that put you in the shoes of an undead assassin as he tried to retrieve a powerful artifact that was stolen from his clan. It had a unique Batman the Animated Series-like art style, but everything else was complete bust. The voice acting was terrible, the story was incomprehensible, the NPC powers were poorly balanced, and the controls, well, they were dire. But the worst of the worst had to be the dual-wielding mechanic. If you actually wanted to shoot people in this game, you're gonna have some real trouble, as the targeting system was so poorly implemented that aiming was damn near impossible. Still, as an Xbox exclusive, this was one that many kids with the Microsoft console gathered around. Back then, it was kind of hard to tell if the game sucked, especially just because it was cool to see a violent cartoon come to life. And number 1, Shadow the Hedgehog. Hey kids, do you want to play as a badass version of Sonic the Hedgehog who shoots people? Well, boy howdy, does Sega have the game for you. For the uninitiated, this game puts you in the shoes of the anti-hero Shadow the Hedgehog and uses third-person shooter mechanics to have him mow down enemies. That's right, this is a game where you play as a hedgehog wielding a gun. The Sonic franchise was clearly facing an identity crisis when this game was released. Now, it's still a mostly child-friendly project with cartoonish visuals and a talking animal as the protagonist, but it's also full of forced maturity and grit that feels totally out of place, the use of guns especially being tonally jarring. Alongside the strange concept, the game just didn't play well. The platforming was weak, the level design was uninspired, and the firearm mechanics just aren't fully realized. Still, none of this mattered to kids who wanted an edgy version of Sonic. If you were a youngster who loved the franchise but also wanted to play more mature content, it was easy to lap this up like a birthday cake. It's easy to ignore a company's desperate attempt to make something cool when you're still young and think that that type of marketed cool is actually, well, cool. And there we go, my friends. Those were the 10 worst video games ever made that we loved as kids. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on the social medias where it's at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, or you can swing by the Future Games show where I do all of my gaming content going forward. Hope to see you over there. But before I go, just want to say that I hope you're doing well, hope you're treating yourself with love and respect, and remember, above all else, my friend, you are a massive ledge and you deserve the bloody best. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye.